Nikola Jokic finished Game 5 with 27 points, 12 rebounds, and 16 assists. Let that sink in for a second. In a playoff game where his team was one loss away from going home, he put up 27, 12, and 16. That is not a good game. That is not even a great game. That is one of the greatest individual playoff performances in NBA history by pure numbers. And Denver still almost lost that game. They only survived, because Minnesota was playing without two of their best players. Then came Game 6. Jokic 28 points, 9 rebounds, 10 assists. Another near triple-double, 43 minutes of basketball, everything he had. And the Nuggets lost by 12. Series over, season over. So here's the question that nobody is actually asking out loud. How do you average a triple-double across a playoff series and still get eliminated in the first round? How does the best player on the floor, night after night, walk out of the building without a series win? Because this is not a fluke. This is not one bad series. There is something much deeper going on here, and by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what it is. And I promise you, the answer is not what you think. Before we get there, let me make sure we are all starting from the same place. Because if you only follow the NBA casually, you might know Nikola Jokic as that big Serbian guy who wins MVP awards. Maybe you have seen a highlight or two, a no-look pass here, a post fadeaway there. What you might not fully appreciate is what he just did this season. Nikola Jokic, in 65 games, averaged 27.7 points, 12.9 rebounds, and 10.7 assists per game. That is a triple-double average for the season. As a center, a 6'11", 284-pound center who plays in the post, not a point guard running pick and roll for 35 minutes a night. And here is the part that rewrites the history books. He led the entire NBA in both rebounds and assists this season at the same time. No player has ever done that. Not Magic Johnson, not LeBron James, not Oscar Robertson. Nobody. In the entire history of professional basketball. No player has ever led the league in both categories in the same year. Nikola Jokic did it in 65 games because a knee injury cost him a month of the season. This is not recency bias. This is not MVP voters getting swept up in the moment. By almost any statistical measure you want to use, Jokic is playing the best basketball any center has ever played. Possibly the best basketball any player has played in the modern era of the sport. And the Denver Nuggets got bounced in the first round of the 2026 playoffs by a Minnesota Timberwolves team that was missing Anthony Edwards. That should bother you. It should bother you a lot, because it means something is deeply structurally wrong. Not with Jokic, with the situation around him. Think about what it actually takes to get eliminated from a playoff series when your best player is posting those numbers. You have to be losing something else. You have to be leaking. Point somewhere that the box score does not immediately show you. You have to have a gap between what one player is doing and what the rest of the team can support. And when you go back and watch this series closely, that gap is not subtle. It is enormous. Game 3, Jokic finishes with 27 points and 15 rebounds. Denver loses by 17. Game 4, he puts up 24, 15, and 9. Gets ejected with 1.3 seconds left, and the Nuggets lose again. Game after game, Jokic is doing everything that can be asked of one human being. And it is not enough. Not because he is failing, but because something around him is. Denver finished this regular season ranked first in the entire league in scoring offense, putting up 122.1 points per game. They went 54 and 20, yes 8. They were a legitimate contender on paper. But there is a number hiding underneath all of that which tells a very different story. And that is what we are going to get into. If you are feeling something right now, whether it is frustration or just plain confusion, you are not alone. After the series ended, Jokic walked up to the microphone and said twice that he still wants to be a Nugget forever. Not angry, not demanding trades, not pointing fingers. Just a guy who genuinely loves the city and the organization that drafted him. Even after a first-round exit that the entire basketball world is calling a massive upset. That loyalty matters. And it is actually a big part of why this story is more complicated and more heartbreaking than it looks on the surface. If you want to understand the full picture, stay with me. Because we have not even gotten to the part where the numbers actually break your brain. Alright, let me pick up exactly where we left off. Jokic led the entire league in rebounds and assists at the same time. Nobody has ever done that, and Denver still went home in round 1. Now we need to understand why. Not at the surface level, at the structural level. Let us go back through the series game by game, because if you look closely enough, there is a pattern that shows up over and over again. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Start with Game 3. Jokic shoots 7 for 26 from the field, Worst shooting night of his entire playoff run this year. And immediately everyone jumps to the same conclusion: Jokic had a bad game, that is why Denver lost. But look at the full numbers. He still finished with 27 points because he went 11 for 11 from the free throw line. He grabbed 15 rebounds. He found every way possible to keep his team alive. The Nuggets lost by 17. Not because Jokic played badly. That is the first thing you need to flip in your head. Game 4. Jokic puts up 24 points, 15 rebounds, 9 assists, gets ejected with 1.3 seconds left on the clock, in a late game altercation that a lot of people felt was him protecting a teammate. Nuggets lose again. The series tilts hard toward Minnesota. But here is the question nobody asked out loud after Game 4, when Jokic is on the bench, when he is not on the floor who is scoring for Denver. Nobody answered that question properly, and that is exactly the problem. Game 5. The one where Jokic goes 27, 12, 16. By pure numbers, one of the greatest individual playoff performances in NBA history. Denver wins, but they only win because Minnesota is playing without Anthony Edwards and Dante DiVincenzo at the same time. Against a shorthanded opponent, it takes a superhuman effort like that just to get Denver through. That should have been a warning sign. It was not treated like one. Game 6. Jokic, 28 points, 9 rebounds, 10 assists. 43 minutes. Edwards comes back. Series over. 3 different games. 3 different surface-level reasons for the losses. But if you look through all of those reasons, there is one thread running through every single game in this series when the pressure was highest. When playoff basketball got physical and ugly and slow, Denver had exactly one person who knew what to do next. And that person cannot do it alone. Now here is where the story actually changes, because this is not the conclusion you think is coming. Throughout this series, when Jokic recorded a triple-double when he hit all 3 statistical categories at the same time, Denver won only 41% of those games across the 2026 playoffs. Read that number again. 41%. What does that mean? It means the triple-double is not the solution. It is the symptom. When does Jokic record a triple-double? When he has to do everything. When nobody else can create their own shot, he has to find them. When nobody else can rebound hard enough to flip possessions, he has to be there. When the offense stalls and the clock is running and Minnesota is setting traps, he is the only one the whole team looks to. A triple-double does not mean Jokic is performing at his peak. It means the players around him are not performing at theirs, and he is filling every single gap with his own body. Think about it this way. Imagine a car with 5 wheels, but only one of them is properly inflated. That wheel is not broken. It is spinning perfectly. But the car cannot drive straight, not because the good wheel is doing anything wrong, but because the weight of the entire system is collapsing onto a single point. Jokic is that wheel. And this season, Denver put almost the entire weight of a 122 point per game offense on his shoulders. Jamal Murray averaged 25.4 points this season. Career best. He shot 43.5% from 3. Those numbers sound impressive right up until you look at how they were created. Murray did not generate those opportunities himself. Jokic generated them. Every pick and roll where Jokic drew 2 defenders and found Murray cutting to the lane. Every time Jokic stationed himself at the elbow and threatened both the pass and the shot simultaneously, forcing the defense to choose and handing Murray an open look. Murray is a good player, but he is a good player largely because Jokic exists, and when the playoffs arrive, when teams have a full week to game plan and coaches start sending double teams earlier, dropping coverage lower, forcing the ball out of his hands in the half-court, Murray has to create for himself. That is a completely different skill set. What are you thinking right now? Because I want to know. If you agree that this is a systemic problem and not a Jokic problem, drop a comment below. And if you think I am wrong, I genuinely want to hear why. Because this debate is a lot more complicated than what ESPN has been saying. But we are not at the most important part yet, because there is one number buried in this season's data that, when you see it, confirms everything we just talked about, and it has everything to do with what happens when Jokic walks off the floor. There is a stat that Denver has been quietly hoping nobody notices. When Nikola Jokic sits, the Nuggets bleed points. Their net rating drops by 8.2 points per 100 possessions the moment he leaves the floor. To put that in context, a swing of 3 to 4 points per 100 possessions is considered significant in the NBA. 8.2 is not a gap, it is a cliff. That means every single minute Jokic spends on the bench, Denver is effectively playing against a better team than the one Jokic is playing against. The team that shows up when he rests is not a 54-win team. It is not a top 3 seed in the West. It is a team that cannot hold a lead, cannot generate offense from multiple sources, and cannot make Minnesota pay for doubling the post, and in a 7-game playoff series. Those minutes add up fast. Now connect that back to the regular season numbers. Denver ranked first in the league in scoring at 122.1 points per game. First. That sounds like a balanced, well-constructed offense. But when you look at where those points are actually coming from, the picture changes completely. Almost every high-value possession in Denver this season started with Jokic touching the ball. His on-court offensive rating was among the best in the league. His off-court number told a completely different story. This is not a team that scores 122 points. This is a team where one player creates the conditions for 122 points, and everyone else fills in the blanks. Jamal Murray shooting 43.5% from 3 is a real skill, but it is a skill that depends entirely on defenders being occupied by Jokic. Aaron Gordon finishing at the rim at an elite rate is real, but those finishes exist because Jokic collapses defenses before Gordon ever catches the ball. Every good thing Denver does on offense has Jokic somewhere at the root of it. And here's the thing that nobody is saying publicly right now. The insight that I think matters more than any of the stats we just covered. When a player of Jokic's caliber puts up a triple-double and his team still loses, the natural instinct is to ask what else he could have done. Could he have been more aggressive? Could he have demanded the ball more in crunch time? Could he have taken over? But that framing misses the point entirely. Jokic already is taking over. He is taking over the rebounding. He's taking over the playmaking. He's taking over the shot creation. The triple-double is not evidence of a player coasting. It is evidence of a player doing 3 jobs simultaneously because the infrastructure around him cannot hold its own weight when the game slows down and defense gets physical. The question is not whether Jokic is good enough. The question is whether. Denver is built correctly for what playoff basketball actually demands. And that brings us to the most important moment of this entire story. After the Nuggets were eliminated after the locker room cleared out and the cameras were still rolling, Nikola Jokic walked to the microphone. He did not demand a trade. He did not call out teammates. He did not give the organization an ultimatum the way superstars in this era sometimes do when a season ends in disappointment. He said twice that he still wants to be a Nugget forever. Think about what that means in the context of modern NBA culture. Luka Doncic is in Los Angeles. Kevin Durant has played for 4 franchises. The concept of a generational player staying loyal to a small market team that keeps falling short, that is genuinely rare. And Jokic is not saying it as a negotiating tactic. He is expected to sign his extension this offseason. He means it, but loyalty does not fix roster construction. Loyalty does not solve a minus 8.2 net rating when the best player sits. Loyalty does not change the fact that Denver has over $260 million committed in salary and cap obligations next season, sitting above the first apron with almost no draft capital left to work with. So here's your answer to the question we started with. Why did Nikola Jokic average a triple-double and still lose in the first round? Because the triple-double was never a sign that everything was working. It was a sign that one man was working harder than any one person should have to, carrying a team whose supporting structure was not built to survive playoff intensity without him doing everything at once. He gave Denver everything he had, every game, every possession. 43 minutes in a must-win elimination game at 31 years old. And the real question going into this offseason is not whether Jokic deserves better. He clearly does. The real question is whether the Denver Nuggets have the assets, the flexibility, and the front office vision to actually build something around him before his window closes for good. Because right now, the greatest player in the world is staying loyal to a franchise that needs to figure out whether it deserves that loyalty. If you want to find out what Denver has to do this offseason to fix this, and whether it is even possible, given where their cap situation stands, make sure you are subscribed. That video is coming. And if this one changed the way you think about Jokic and this Nuggets teams, I would genuinely love to know what shifted for you in the comments.